Everybody, today for me is a kind of fun one. And I want to focus on the top mistakes companies make in problem solving. Now, are they the top 5? Well, I'll let you decide that. So what's the hot potato mistake? Well, imagine when you have a problem, quite often at the company level, it's like a hot potato. Nobody wants it. You're jumping up in the air and you want this hot potato to go away. What can happen is that you want to drive an action. There is nothing better if you have a big problem to go to your manager or your leader and say, well, the problem's there, but we've got a solution. What does that drive? Well, that drives making assumptions, driving quickly to conclusions and working on the solution before even really understanding what the problem is or how good your solution is. Quite often it can be done innocently. It can be done based on, say, expert opinion. To give an example, maybe you're working on the web application and in development you had a lot of issues with bandwidth and it was crashing during that and you fixed it and then it went live and guess what? Then it was crashing. So you might say, we had this problem in development. The expert says, yeah, we did. So what do? You start working on actions to complete then or improve the bandwidth. But then you find out actually it had nothing to do with that. But actually had to do with usernames, parsing error. In fact, anyone had a strange username or a funky username with $signs or things like that, it crashed the system. So these are the kind of mistakes that you can make. Making assumptions, driving straight to the actions, knowing the solution before you even understand the problem. There's a strong temptation to do that, especially when the problem looks intuitive, when the problem looks obvious. That's sometimes the biggest danger. When it looks like an obvious problem to solve, you jump straight to a conclusion, off you go, and then you can make some big mistakes. The time to learn problem solving, the time to learn your company processes, methods, and tools to do problem solving is not when you have a major problem. But how often does that happen with the key stakeholders involved and you have a major problem and you suddenly go to an engineer, please fill in this form, please fill in this ticket, we have a major problem, you need to prepare this presentation for the leadership using this particular method here in order to demonstrate the problem. Whereas you've never trained your people really on how to do problem solving or understanding how the tools work. There's no formal process to ensure that the company has a good level of understanding of how to manage problems, how the company does it, what tools they have in place. And so what happens is that developers and engineers and everybody else goes about their business all the time and all of a sudden when there's a problem, everyone has to become problem solving experts. But the benefit of ingraining in the culture a problem-solving mentality and the benefit of giving just a few hours training, once you've done the initial training, a few hours of training per year to ensure that all your people are up to standard in problem-solving. The benefits a company can gain from that is just massive compared to the chaos when all of a sudden you have a major problem and all the people have to suddenly become experts in problem-solving. Now is not the time to learn it. When you have a major problem, it's a bit late. Now, the hippo effect is not the animal, but it's the acronym meaning the highest paid person's opinion. So what I'm really getting at here is assumptions over data. It kind of links back to one, but it's actually more deep than that. It's actually having a data-driven approach to problem solving. Now, I'm going to go even deeper to understand the implications of that. What that means is no person, no matter how high they're up in the company, no matter how expert they are in the company, nobody is above the data. Now that also means good data analysis. Your company has to have a good data-driven approach. You have to have expert in data analysis, data processing, data capture, and so on. But nobody is above that. You use data in which to base your conclusions. You base an hypothesis and you do your data. Now I can give some examples where I've been working with experts in their field, some globally recognized experts. And they say, oh yes, we understand the problem. The problem is you have the monotronic function of the flux capacitor not aligned with the gravity waves of the singularity related to the electron spin. And they look all chuffed that they just told you something that makes no sense to you. And then you say, oh, okay, thanks a lot. But can you design me an experiment so I can prove this hypothesis? Then they're in shock. They don't like that. But that's the point. Data. Everything must be data driven. It can be even simple. You may have a problem and you get technicians in labs to do these tests. Lots and lots and lots of tests, all kind of parameters and temperatures and so on and so forth. But they don't write them down. And so you have all this data, all this money that your company has spent in analyzing this problem. and you haven't got the data to back it up or to see the patterns that you may have seen that you've missed because you haven't collated your data. So data processing and data analysis is as important as capturing data, and being aware that data is the king. It's the king. Nobody's voice is above the data. Data-driven thinking, data-driven approach goes into critical thinking, if you like. But that's a mistake that companies often make, where I see ultimately the highest paid opinion wins. Well, what does that mean? Tag, you're it. Well, sometimes what happens in many companies, mistakes that they make, they don't have clear, accountable people for problems. It kind of wisps around to functions. You might see the function name, but not the actual problem, who's accountable. And what tends to happen then, the person closest to the problem or the problem that had happened to them, they become the owner of the problem, instead of maybe the right people involved in it who should become the owner of the problem. You see, it's really important for companies to ensure upfront, again, before problems occur, that they have a good system for who is responsible for problem solving when they happen, and a good disciplined approach to capture actions from problem solving. There's nothing worse to see an action for problem solving where you have no name, but maybe a function's name and no date, and say, we'll come back next time. There's nothing worse than that. And what happens is that the problem floats around to different people, each one trying to push it to the other, till it gets to the very top of the leadership and isn't solved, and then it just goes back down again. Tremendous waste and stress on the people. It's so important that you have a very good RASIC, roles and responsibilities. Who does what? How do you manage a task force? How do you allocate the leader? How do you make sure that that leader has all the support of their functional managers to free up their time to manage it? That all needs to be done upfront and embedded and supported by the leadership. But the benefit that you can get from that, the benefit is again tremendous if you do these things upfront and discipline to them. So fool's gold is the way that I look at it, is that problems can actually be gold. And if you look back at the top companies in the world, some of the most successful, innovative companies, they treat failure as gold. But you know what? That's not easy. Why? Because you have to embed in your company a very strong lessons learned process, where you really look at the lessons and embed them back into your processes. That requires work, that requires effort, that requires training. Now, what tends to happen, or the mistakes companies make, is they have a huge problem. They fix the problem. They may have a very light lesson learned system, or maybe none at all. They all go, oh, problem's gone now. And they may, over coffee or over beer, talk about this terrible problem, but they never really understood that what they had was gold. So it's a fool's gold to them, fixing the problem quickly, closing the door, and not really learning from what the problem gave them, what really helped them, in which they could embed into their company. The best companies have this. Okay, so that completes my 5 issues. Are they top 5? You know what? As I'm going through these, I can think of a lot more. And probably there's going to be a part 2. And I'm going to leave it to you if you think these are the top 5 issues, or if you think these are other issues. What you'll also see is they're interlinked, and they tend to kind of come together. Some of the issues or mistakes companies make, they don't tend to just make the one. They normally make the 2 or 3. But you know, problem solving, is done well, can be a tremendous asset for a company. So I'm kind of quite passionate about problem solving. And this is just a bit of fun for me. I hope you enjoyed it. I think almost certainly there's going to be a part 2 to this.